The average man today is sleepwalking through life. Many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Luckily, throughout history, there exists a few good men we can look to for guidance. Strong, confident, driven. Men who weren't afraid to face the greatest tyrant they've ever known, their minds. Forged in the fire of their shadows, these men knew who they were at their core, solid in their convictions, owners of their reality, men of action, strength, and character, masters of their destiny. Today's man is no different. The hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve them or the world. There's never been a better time than today for men to stand up and claim their stake. It's time to reconnect to your life purpose, evolving into husbands and fathers our wives and children deserve, becoming masters of our life and the leaders of our homes and community. Ever evolving, today's man is assured he is aligned for greatness. Welcome to the movement. Stay strong, my brother.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alan DeMonto. I'm the host of the Evolving Man podcast. And today I have a very special guest joining me. Her name is Mary Joye. She's a licensed mental health counselor and a certified Supreme Court family mediator from Winter Haven, Florida. Mary specializes in trauma, grief, and life-changing events. She also has begun Sunshine Divorce Coaching with a team of experts to expedite divorce recovery and reduce time and expenses in legal battles. Mary's approach integrates cognitive behavioral therapy, PTSD trauma resolution, and other proven techniques. Mary also has a thriving life coach practice. So welcome, Mary. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Right on. So I came across Mary's work as I was looking to enhance some of the work here with the Awakened Man. And Mary has a program called From Codependence to Independent that I thought was really poignant for today's men. And so today we're going to talk about some of this work that Mary does. And the first question I wanted to go over, Mary, is you talk about the roots of codependency. And I'm just wondering, from a male perspective, how do you see that being a challenge for men today?
Well, nobody really likes to be labeled, and actually this should free up people's mind. Codependency, briefly defined, is a loss of self caring for others. I call it narcissism in reverse. Narcissists are obsessed with themselves. Codependents are obsessed with others and taking care of others and making sure everyone else is okay. So really, it isn't a formal disorder, which is nice to know. I always say it's not a formal disorder because codependents always say, I'm fine, I don't need any help, I'm good. And they're not. They're stressed out usually. They're doing too much for everyone. And I have I don't know if you'd call it a mantra, but a logo that says, I can do anything, but I can't do everything. But codependent people tend to think they can do everything. So for men, that usually manifests in childhood as being the little man or having to take care of things. Sometimes alcoholic parents do it. Also, just a spiritual background of, it's better to give than to receive. And it is, but you have to receive in order to give first. Mm-hmm. So I think men manifest that in adulthood and attachment issues. And also they try to be the fixer. They try to hammer things out. They bail people out. And that's, all men like superhero stories. And we all hear, you're supposed to rescue damsels in distress. But beware of those damsels in distress, because many times they're not really in distress. They're going to cause you distress. It's like a Trojan horse almost. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Men get taken in by that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, especially when you talked about men being fixers and how we struggle as to be that hero. And really trying to understand how it is that we can fit within our relationship. So I really like that model. The other parts of the course that you talk about the neuroscience of codependency. And I thought that was really interesting and wondered if you could touch a little bit on that as well.
Well, it's so very important because so little has been studied, because when something is not a formal disorder, it's very difficult for universities and for doctors to get the money to do studies because it's not a formal disorder. And there's no medication for it other than just taking care of yourself. That is the number one medication for codependency, is to take care of yourself before you take care of others. But there are some studies on it, and it's considered to be a type of pathological altruism, meaning, I'll just paraphrase that you can believe the best and the worst of people. This gives people a feeling of dopamine and a sense of, I can save this person, I can rescue this person. Ask any first responder. I mean, this is why they go into that field. The Marines, I always say, they leave no man behind, semper fi, always faithful. And if you carry this into relationships that are toxic or unhealthy and you're always faithful, you can get in a trap because it's pathological. Doesn't mean you can't believe the best in people, but don't believe the best and the worst of people. If you see a pattern and you can't see it until it happens, the only way to break it is to break free from it. You can't fix it.
Right.
So that may be where men have trouble. And we get dopamine when we rescue and we do good things. We all do. Women do, men do. It gives you a rush to say, I saved someone's life, or I saved someone from losing their job, or I saved someone from alcoholism, or we're not doing all the saving. So there's dopamine, and it feels good when you give. It doesn't feel good when you don't give.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So then from a learning perspective, how does this manifest for men as we get older?
Well, I think that they do still see rescuing behavior as an altruistic model. And it is. I'm not saying you can't rescue people. However, you can't rescue people unless they want to be rescued. And I grew up across the street from a Coast Guard station. So I help men and women to understand this model that the Coast Guard sends down a rescue swimmer tethered to a helicopter, and that pilot makes a decision because sometimes the people you save want to drown you. It's just a reflex, and they don't want to lose that rescue swimmer. So the pilot has to make a horrible judgment call and snatch that rescuer back up because the rescuer is not going to let go. It's that need to rescue and then somebody needing to be rescued, and it can create a horrible situation. So that's what I tell people is find a rescue people. Just be sure you're not going down with them like you're bailing people out of jail so many times. Gives you dopamine. It makes your vagus nerve go off. And actually, and this isn't to make it complex, I'm going to try to simplify it. People feel good when they give. We've said that. We've established that. And they feel good when they don't feel good when they don't give. And we've established that. But the problem that happens in codependency with men or women is that there's something in our bodies called a vagus nerve. And it's huge. It goes out of your brainstem, in your face, down your throat, through all your vital organs. So when you get that feeling in your stomach of butterflies, it's the same thing that you get when you get bad news. The same thing that takes your breath away in the Grand Canyon makes you have a panic attack and can't breathe. So when you're rescuing, all that reactivity, that fight, flight, and frozen kicks off that vagus nerve. And here goes all the chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol. I rescued this person, dopamine, and then crash.
Wow.
And it's kind of like addiction. It can be a trauma bond.
For sure. Well, that's so interesting that you bring that up. One of the lessons that we work through with men is teaching them how to become more emotionally intelligent with and recognizing triggers and that. And so, well, that's what my bit of the takeaway I'm getting from what you're talking about is that if we're not aware of what's happening, this is how quickly this vagus nerve can overtake us. If I'm understanding what you're saying correctly.
Yes, and it's a response. We all have it. It's the fight, flight, frozen, and we all have heard about that. Very few people know about the vagus nerve, so I would encourage your listeners to go to Dr. Google, because I don't want to give them a neuroscience lecture, but it is what causes the physiological reactivity to emotional responses. It's a parasympathetic nervous system. So it's exactly what it says. When it feels sympathy for your emotions.
Wow.
It kicks in, and some people, especially emotionally intelligent people, it can kick in. So really what you're doing is when you're emotionally intelligent and you have a huge empathic response through those mirror neurons we all have, we can read each other from our facial expressions. When that kicks in, it can just take you over and you can get sucked in very easily. So
Wow.
it's a wonderful response. It's meant to keep us safe. It also can be dangerous if you're not emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, fair enough. So then, how does one of the lessons that you had in your course there, you talked about the broken heart, and I just wanted to touch a little bit about how has a broken heart affected men?
Well, we've learned, and that's one of those ancient things that we've proven to be true with modern science. There is such a thing as broken heart syndrome. Your heart can become so damaged from what I just spoke of. The vagus nerve is very large around the heart. The heart actually changes its shape when you're rejected. And rejection, and if you're constantly rejected, it can impair your heart. I mean, that's just a toxic dumping of chemicals. That's why we say people have good chemistry or it's a toxic relationship. So if you're trying to fix a toxic relationship, you may get your heart broken over and over and over. And this could cause a trauma response too, like a complex PTSD response. You may be afraid to love again. You may build up a wall. You may have no boundaries. You may just open up and be an open book. They all can be manifestations of the spectrum of codependency, from being a doormat to more of a controller, I know what's good for you type, if that makes sense.
Sure does. Wow, that's great. I wanted to spend a little bit of time now just touching on the healing of codependency. And you talked, and one of the areas you talk about was the family secrets. And for men, many of us, one of the secrets that we will have challenges with is healing shame for things that have happened to us in our childhood. And I just wanted to know if you could touch a little bit about that and what it looks like or feels like for guys.
Well, shame is about the most toxic emotion you can have. It's right up there with guilt. I don't mean to be dramatic, but those are two of the emotions that will cause someone to want to take their own life quicker than anything, are shame and guilt. And when we make decisions based on shame or guilt, they're always from a perspective of I'm not worthy. So you make poor decisions when they're based on shame, guilt, or fear. So if you had a childhood of covering up an alcoholic parent or an abusive dad or an abusive mom or an abandoned child, if you have any of that, sometimes you can try to avoid it, but then it creates a void. And you need to feel things to heal them. But shame is something that people don't want to feel. And I would tell people this is a good time to join your organization, to call a professional. And a lot of young men that we're finding out now have been molested as women have. So this is something men weren't told to talk about. So I put it this way. Your family is not Las Vegas. What stays in your family does not, what happens in your family, what happens in your family doesn't have to stay in your family. You don't have to tell everyone, but you certainly should tell someone something to try to get some healing. You need to run this past other people. That's why I love your Evolving Man podcast and everything else you're doing, because men suffer from this in silence more than women.
Yes, we've been raised with this very misunderstanding of what stoicism is all about, and we do not share. And so that's why I thought it was so important to have you on the podcast today, so that that men that are in the Awakened Man and listen to this podcast know that there are people today that can help them, and it's so important. And I really like that you touched on the inner child work, because that's also some of the stuff that we do. We use the archetype piece within the Awakened Man, and dealing with the king, lover, magician, and warrior archetypes. And I wonder how that kind of fits in with this inner child work, and how maybe at times men are afraid to love themselves.
Well, the term self-love gets tossed around a lot. I have a difficult time with it too, because if you haven't figured out by now, I'm a recovered codependent. And I say recovered because I don't like to keep, hi, I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic. Even if you haven't had a drink in 20 years, it's just me. I'm not criticizing that method. It works for some people. But with codependency, when you keep calling yourself something, you're just going to keep acting on it. So it's like to say I'm recovered. I slip up every now and then. But when men compartmentalize, and they do that much better than women, usually women kind of think in spider webs and make connections. Men are excellent at compartmentalizing. So they compartmentalize their childhoods. Women do it too. But what happens to men and women when their brain starts fully developing at the age of childbearing, somewhere between 20 and 30, these memories from their past just come flooding in, because they're about to become parents, they're looking for a mate, and even if they're not, their brain is, if that makes sense. Even if they're not, their primitive brain is looking, even if they're not conscious of their subconscious. So becoming conscious of your subconscious helps that inner child heal. I do inner child healing work. It's intense, but it's also fast. I do it quickly because it takes all the work from your childhood and brings your adult self into it. And I call it accessing your inner adult. So I think men will like that better. I'm not asking men to crawl on the floor and go fetal and cry for an hour. That is not the objective. The objective is to get that child reparented by the higher self you are now. And there's ways to do that. I do guided imagery and meditation, and it's rather fast and it's pretty intense.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And I think from a guy's perspective, that's so much more appealing when to hear you talk about that type of work process in healing inner child work than something that's long and drawn out. And because I think at least I'll speak for myself, and I'll suggest that a lot of the men that are part of the Awakened Man also feel that we don't necessarily want to be in that mud, in that muck for long periods of time. We are, but we're trying to find our way out of it. We're solution-focused individuals. And so I really like what you talked about there. The next
My favorite words. Go ahead. I'm sorry. The solution focus. I'm a solution focused therapist, so thank you. Yes. And that means we work more quickly. You expedite healing. Yes. As a trauma professional, now we know reliving it isn't relieving it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Alan, but it's very important that people know that you can heal faster than you think. You're not going to spend years in therapy talking about how you feel. Solution-focused therapists don't ask, how do you feel? They usually ask how you want to feel, and they help you get there. They help you listen to yourself and the options that you have to get you better in your path, in your way. Perfect.
So that kind of leads into the next point I wanted to talk about. Is you also touch on throughout the healing portion was having intention, the practice of generosity from compassion instead of from a place of fear. And you touched a little bit on the notes here on Joseph Campbell's work, and I really like the hero's journey. I'm wondering if you could spend some time telling us how those interrelate with each other.
Well, I love the hero's journey work. I've just started dabbling in it, so I'm not an expert by any means, but I love it, and I think men will relate to this too, because George Lucas revealed that every Star Wars plot came from it. So does every Disney movie. It's about receiving a call, like a call to come out of the ordinary life. You can stay, by the way. You don't have to heed the call. But at first, there's a resistance to that call. And I'm just going to paraphrase it so I don't have to do all the 17 steps. But there's a resistance to that call. And that's why your evolving man, what a perfect name for that. Like if someone's trying to learn how to self-love, I resist the term self-love, or I resist the term that I might be codependent, or I resist that I have a calling to help other people. But truly, if they don't resist the call and they go, okay, I'm going to learn about self-respect, usually something happens when they start thinking about not resisting the call and let that fear go. Something happens that forces them to heed the call. Something throws them, catapults them out, like Bambi's mother gets shot and he's forced to be alone for a while and learn about himself. Then they make allies and mentors, because Yoda told Luke Skywalker, your dad is Darth Vader. You just have to unlearn what you've learned. Again, he was healing Luke's inner child.
Yeah.
So it works in that way too. And then the good news is men love to fix things and they love to rescue people. So when you come out of the abyss of that, the full circle is that you return to where you left, share the elixir is what they call it. And it's a fixer, and you share the wisdom of what you've learned. You're sharing it from a place where you've gone through it and into it and down to the bottom and come back out with allies and mentors, and then you become one to others. So it's the ultimate recovery from codependency, is using compassion and learning from it, going through it yourself, and then sharing it with others to expedite the healing, which is what you and I are doing right now. We're sharing this with other people.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. Thank you so much for that. The next point I wanted to touch on is you talked about, you had a section called What Do You Really Want? And my takeaway out of that was talking about morphing and the chameleon behavior. And I thought, so how do men tend to cave or camouflage their true feelings in relationships?
Well, I don't want to stereotype men as women, But again, men compartmentalize more often. Men are taught big boys don't cry. Big boys do cry. Women actually like vulnerable men. And I tell everyone, there's a lot of talk now about, self-love and vulnerability. I always tell people there is power in being vulnerable with certain people, but beware with whom you share, because some people might be sociopathic or narcissistic or be using you, especially if you're a codependent type giving fixer man. So that being said, men just tend to morph into the strong guy, the tough guy. They don't have to. Men tend to do that. It's not all men, but they tend to do that. Or the rescuer again, they'll run in and try to fix it and be the hero, and then they're exhausted sometimes. Or they're trying to fix something that isn't fixable. Sometimes you just have to sell the old car, no matter how many new parts you buy, the mechanism wears out. So I appreciate that about men, but men usually morph in the way of becoming tough or the rescuer type, the superhero type. I can do anything. I can fix it. I know what's right for her. I know what's right for him. I know what's right for everybody.
That's so true.
Women do it too, but men more so.
Guys, for sure. Then touching on the revealing and healing an unhealthy relationship, and we've really been working on that through this whole interview so far. But what's behind the instant attraction that we should be aware of? Because men tend to. We can have that happen where it's love at first sight, and I'm just wondering from your work with the codependents, how does that look, and what actually is happening and going on, and how can we be more aware of it?
Well, just like everyone, I want to believe in love at first sight, and it does happen. However, in the context of codependency, it can be reenactment. Like if you fall in love with someone, immediately that's the one. It could be your childhood speaking to you. And it could be someone who doesn't reveal that right away. You're just subconsciously picking up cues, especially emotional intelligent people, but they may not be aware that the person who is saying, oh, tell me all about yourself and where do you work and where do you live and what do you do? They might be gathering information to use you. So if you're instantly attracted to someone, make sure that it isn't somebody that maybe someone that you've had an unresolved relationship with, like a parent or a sibling. And just be careful of reenactment, because again, it's a physiological response. Women like the bad boys and men like the bad girls are trying to make them good because they may have had a parent that was difficult. So they're trying to fix their childhood relationship to gain mastery over their adult one. And you never gain mastery. It's like watching a movie over and over and over and expecting it to end differently. It doesn't.
Right. For sure. The other point on healing I wanted to touch on a little bit, you have a little bit through today, is how addiction and codependency can be a challenge for us as well. I'm wondering if you had some thoughts on that.
Well, codependency is treated like an addiction. I actually went to an addiction specialist when I was told I was codependent in graduate school. One of my professors told me that, and I said, no, I'm not. I'm just nice. And she said, no, you're going to work in a drug and alcohol rehab for your internship, and they're going to eat you alive. And I thank her so much. And when I went to a codependency an addictions doctor, he said, you just have to detach from toxic people and enjoy your life. That is so hard for a codependent to do because they get hooked by that trauma bond. I want to fix it. It makes me feel so good. But you're really making yourself feel good by making someone else feel good. And do you see in itself, that's a way of treating your own symptoms of inadequacy. If I make that person feel good, I'll feel good. There's an old song called I Want to Be Happy, but I won't be happy unless I can make you happy too. It's a very old song. I forget who wrote it. I should know that because I used to be a songwriter. But that is the perfect codependent anthem. Wow. I won't be happy unless you are. Yowza.
Well,
danger zone.
Yeah, and a lot of the work that we do, well, actually all the work that we do within the Awakened Man is helping men find the truth within themselves and shifting their locus of control from external to internal. And when we can do that and we can really internalize what it is that we want and who we are, we have a much better chance of being successful and living the life that we want to. So I'm really happy to hear you talk about that. Then the last little piece I wanted to talk about is how you touched on how we can go from codependence to an interdependence, and help us understand how we can how we can move from being independent, yet not being selfish. I'm sure some of us, and I've thought about it, geez, how selfish am I going to be if I become this independent person now?
Well, the original title was Codependent to Interdependent, but it doesn't read well. And we're all interdependent. The doctor I went to said we're all codependent in some way, and we all are. You are supposed to take care of people. You're supposed to wear yourself out for ailing parents or children who need you. It's the unhealthy kind of relationships where you're dependent on them to make you feel better if they feel better. That's what you need to watch out for. And it makes people feel selfish at first. When they first start recovering, they do feel selfish. It's a withdrawal symptom. They feel anxious and they feel so selfish. But I always go back to and we've all heard this a million times, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, because you can't take care of your children if you don't take care of yourself first. If you don't self-care in some way or have self-respect, which I like much better than the term self-love, just toss so much around. Self-respect, self-care, self-compassion. When you apply that to yourself and rest and reset, which those words are very closely related, rest and reset. When you do that and take time for yourself, then you're better equipped to handle everyone else.
Excellent. That's so good. So good. So what would be the takeaway message you could give men today? After everything we've touched on today, if there was a message or two that you would want men to take away, what would that be?
Well, we're wired in our brains for pleasure and fear, and they seem paradoxical. So I'm going to tell men to run toward their fear. I tell women every day to run toward their fear too. Whatever you're most afraid of is usually the thing that you may have to face. That would be that Joseph Campbell, the abyss. You don't stay there. And I would tell people you don't stay there long. And the harder you push through it, the quicker you get out of it. You will come out of it. And I love your 4 Horsemen of Life model, because the warrior is very much the recovered codependent that I see in here, that's decisive and disciplined, does what's necessary, and no more, although a codependent type's always going to do more. Nothing wrong with that. They're always going to do a little bit more. That's okay. Sets boundaries, serves a cause, has loyalty, integrity, and a good attitude. That is an emotionally intelligent person. So just apply the emotional intelligence to yourself and go ahead and face the fear of the withdrawal symptoms of feeling selfish. You're going to get anxious. It's just like withdrawal. I want to buy her or him, a mink coat. Well, I don't like mink coats, but a diamond or a Corvette, whatever your big dream is. I'm going to buy this person that, and you can't afford it. Stop the insanity. Just stop and face your fear and say, is this my codependency talking, or am I doing this from fear? Because codependence is a good way to wrap it up. It is driven by a fear of abandonment. And usually narcissists and sociopaths are driven by a fear of abandonment. They lack empathy, and a codependent type person has way too much empathy. You're going to end up shirtless and dimeless. Yes. So to run toward that fear of saying, okay, moderation, boundaries.
Absolutely. Well, what a great interview today. Thank you so much, Mary. So if men were interested in getting a hold of you, I see they can reach you at a number here. It's 863-875-2813. And they can also write you at mjoye, joy with an E, Joye @gmail.com. I'm going to put all of this in the notes for the podcast. You'll be able to get a hold of this gentleman, so don't be too worried if you have to write down quickly. And Mary has a great, with this whole talk today was really based on a course that she has with Daily OM, and it's from codependent to independent. And I'll put a link there, as well as with Mary's website for Winter Haven Counseling, as well as the Sunshine Divorce Coaching. So Mary, I just want to thank you so much for spending time today. I think we've shared a ton of great wisdom for men here at the Evolving Man and the Awakened Man, and just so grateful to have been able to spend this time with you.
Thank you, Alan, and I wish everyone out there well. If you're going through any life transition, remember you're just going through it. Just go through it. It's not going to define you. Just allow it to go. Hang out with people like Alan and get help if you need it. But yes, you will get out on the other side. You can be your own hero too,
Right on. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And thank you very much for spending time with me today.
Same to you. I appreciate it, Alan. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Evolving Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.